There are moments that change everything. Moments where the mask falls, where the truth reveals itself in the cruelest way possible, where the people you thought loved you show you exactly who they really are. This is the story of one of those moments. A celebration dinner. A toast. And words that would destroy a family forever. But this is also a story about preparation. About someone who saw it coming. Who quietly, methodically, protected herself while everyone else celebrated. This is the story of how my father and sister tried to erase me from our family legacy, only to discover I'd already erased them first. My name is Elena Martinez. And this is how I went from the forgotten daughter to the owner of everything they thought was theirs. I grew up in a family business. My father, Roberto Martinez, built a small construction supply company from nothing. Started with a single truck and a lot of determination. By the time I was born, it was doing well enough to support our family comfortably. My sister, Isabella, was 5 years older than me. The golden child. The favorite. The one who could do no wrong. From the time I was 12 years old, I worked in that business. Weekends. Summers. After school. I learned inventory management. Customer relations. Supply chain logistics. I worked the warehouse, the sales floor, the office. I did everything because I loved it. Because I wanted to be part of what my father had built. Because I thought that's what family did. You contributed. You built together. Isabella never worked a day in the business. She was too busy with dance classes, piano lessons, social events. And my parents never asked her to. She's not built for this kind of work, my mother would say. She's more delicate. More refined. I didn't mind. Not really. I loved the work. Loved learning. Loved feeling useful. When I turned 22 and graduated with a business degree, my father finally put me on the official payroll. Not as family. As an employee. Salary. No ownership stake. No partnership. Just a manager position with a modest wage. You need to earn your place, he said. Just like I did. Isabella will inherit when the time comes, but you can work here as long as you pull your weight. That should have been my first warning. But I was young. Naive. Still believed that hard work would be recognized. That results would speak for themselves. That eventually, my father would see what I contributed and treat me fairly. So I worked harder. I took on projects nobody else wanted. I streamlined operations. Cut waste. Negotiated better supplier contracts. Within 3 years, I'd increased revenue by 40%. Within 5 years, we'd doubled our customer base and expanded into 3 new territories. All while Isabella lived in the family home, rent-free, doing absolutely nothing. She tried college twice and dropped out both times. Worked a few retail jobs for a few months each before quitting because they were beneath her. Spent her days shopping, posting on social media, going to parties. And my parents supported her. Praised her. Called her their princess. Then came the expansion opportunity. A chance to acquire a struggling competitor's assets. Equipment. Warehouse space. An established customer list. It would triple our capacity overnight. But it required significant investment. Loans. Credit lines. Personal guarantees. My father was hesitant. Too risky, he said. What if it fails? We could lose everything. But I'd done the analysis. Run the numbers. Built the business case. This wasn't risk. It was opportunity. So I made him a deal. Let me handle it, I said. I'll sign for the loans. I'll take the personal risk. If it works, the company benefits. If it fails, it's on me. My father thought about it for exactly 10 seconds. Fine. You want to gamble with your future, that's your choice. But don't expect me to bail you out if it goes wrong. So I signed. My name. My credit. My personal guarantee on every document. The equipment leases. The warehouse purchase agreements. The supply contracts. All in my name, as managing partner of the expansion division. My father signed off on it as the original owner, but the expansion, legally, was mine. I'd built it. Financed it. Owned it. And over the next 2 years, it became the most profitable part of the entire operation. We went from a regional player to a serious competitor. Revenue tripled. Staff doubled. We opened 2 more locations. I'd built something extraordinary. And I'd done it while my sister posted Instagram photos and my father barely acknowledged my existence. The expansion transformed the company. We secured contracts with major construction firms. Expanded our product lines. Upgraded our technology systems. Hired talented managers. Every success, every milestone, every achievement was the result of my work. My vision. My leadership. But my father never acknowledged it. When clients praised the expansion, he'd smile and say, "We've been working hard." When employees thanked me for the improvements, he'd remind them that this is still a family business. When industry publications wanted to interview someone about our growth, he insisted on being the spokesperson. Isabella continued to do nothing. But whenever someone asked about the business, she'd talk about our company and our success as if she'd contributed anything at all. She'd show up at company events wearing expensive clothes, playing the role of the successful entrepreneur's daughter, taking credit by association. And I let it happen. Because I still believed that eventually, my work would speak for itself. That my father would see what I'd built and finally acknowledge that I deserved to be treated as more than hired help. I was wrong. Then came Isabella's 30th birthday. My parents decided to throw her a massive celebration dinner. Rented out an entire restaurant. Invited extended family, business associates, friends. 50 people gathered to celebrate Isabella reaching 30 years of accomplishing absolutely nothing. I almost didn't go. I was exhausted. I'd been working 70-hour weeks managing the expansion, handling a major client crisis, training new staff. But my mother called and guilt-tripped me. "It would break your sister's heart if you didn't come. Family is everything, Elena. Don't be selfish." So I went. Dressed professionally because I'd come straight from a site visit. Sat at a table near the back while Isabella held court at the head table, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The dinner was fine. Boring, but fine. People gave speeches about how wonderful Isabella was. How beautiful. How special. Nobody mentioned that she was 30 and still living with her parents. Still unemployed. Still contributing nothing. Then came my father's speech. And everything changed. He stood up, glass of champagne in hand, smiled at the room, and began. "Thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate my beautiful daughter Isabella. 30 years ago, she came into our lives and brought nothing but joy. She is everything a father could want in a child. Beautiful, graceful, kind." People smiled. Nodded. Isabella beamed. "And tonight," my father continued, "I want to make an announcement. An important one. About the future of our family and our business." My stomach tightened. Something in his tone felt wrong. Felt planned. "I've been thinking a lot about legacy lately," he said. "About what I'll leave behind. About who deserves to carry on what I've built. And I've made a decision." He turned to Isabella, his voice swelling with emotion. Isabella, tomorrow morning, we're going to the attorney's office. I'm transferring everything into your name. The business. The house. The savings. All of it. You will be the sole heir of the Martinez family legacy. The room erupted in applause. People cheered. Isabella's eyes filled with tears as she stood and hugged our father. My mother was crying. Everyone was celebrating. Everyone except me. My father wasn't done. He raised his glass higher, his voice carrying across the restaurant. Some people have asked why I'm doing this now. Why I'm not splitting things equally between my daughters. He paused for effect. Then looked directly at me for the first time all evening. The truth is, Elena doesn't need our help. She's independent. Strong. Capable. She'll be fine on her own. But Isabella, my sweet Isabella, needs to be taken care of. She needs security. Protection. And as her father, it's my responsibility to make sure she's provided for. The words landed like physical blows. Doesn't need our help. She'll be fine on her own. Translation: You're not worth investing in. You don't deserve what I've built. Your years of work mean nothing. So tomorrow, my father concluded, raising his glass, we begin a new chapter. The Martinez legacy will live on through Isabella. To my daughter. My heir. My princess. To Isabella, the room chorused. I sat frozen. Humiliated. Erased. In front of 50 people, my father had just announced that everything I'd built, everything I'd contributed, everything I'd sacrificed, was worthless. That the business I'd saved, expanded, and transformed would be handed to my sister who'd never worked a day in her life. Isabella caught my eye across the room. For just a moment, I saw something in her expression. Not surprise. Not guilt. Satisfaction. She'd known. This wasn't a spontaneous announcement. This was planned. Coordinated. A public humiliation designed to put me in my place. I stood up slowly. Every eye in the restaurant turned to me. My father's smile faltered slightly, perhaps expecting me to make a scene. To cry. To beg. To argue. I didn't. I walked calmly to the coat rack, grabbed my jacket, and headed for the door. Behind me, I heard my mother's voice, sharp and disapproving, Elena. Where are you going? Your father is making a speech. I turned back one last time. Looked at my father. At Isabella. At the room full of people who just witnessed my erasure from my own family. Congratulations, Isabella, I said, my voice steady. I hope you enjoy your inheritance. And I walked out. I didn't cry on the drive home. Didn't scream. Didn't fall apart. Because somewhere beneath the hurt and betrayal, I felt something else. Clarity. My father had just made the biggest mistake of his life. And he didn't even know it yet. That night, I sat in my apartment and went through every document related to the business expansion. Every contract I'd signed. Every loan agreement. Every lease. Every vendor relationship. Every client account that had come through the expansion division. And I realized something. The expansion wasn't just the most profitable part of the business. It was the entire foundation. The old company, the one my father had built. It was barely breaking even. Surviving on the revenue generated by what I'd created. The equipment, the warehouse space, the client relationships, all of it was legally tied to the expansion division. Which was in my name. Elena Martinez, Managing Partner, Expansion Operations. My father could transfer ownership of Martinez Construction Supply to Isabella. But he couldn't transfer what he didn't own. And he didn't own the expansion. I did. I spent that entire night reviewing documents. Every contract. Every clause. Every signature line. And the truth became crystal clear. When my father had given me full authority to structure the expansion, he'd literally given me full authority to create a separate legal entity, to sign contracts in my name, to build something that was mine. I'd done it for liability protection, so that if the expansion failed, it wouldn't drag down the original company. But now that structure had a different purpose. Protection. My protection. From a family that had just publicly declared I was worthless. The warehouse that stored 90% of our inventory, leased under my name through the Expansion LLC. The major equipment that handled most of our operations, leased under my name. The contracts with our biggest clients, the ones that generated 70% of our revenue, all signed through the Expansion division. All mine. My father could give Isabella the Martinez construction supply name. The old office building. The aging delivery trucks. The handful of small legacy clients. But without the expansion, without the infrastructure and relationships I'd built, it was worthless. An empty shell with a family name on it. I called my attorney first thing the next morning. David Chen, a sharp corporate lawyer I'd worked with on the expansion contracts. David, I need you to review something. If my father transfers ownership of the original company to someone else, what happens to the expansion division? There was a pause. The sound of papers rustling. The expansion is a separate legal entity, Elena. You structured it that way for liability protection. He can transfer the original LLC, but the expansion stays with you. You're the sole owner of record. And the equipment? The warehouse? The client contracts? All registered under the Expansion LLC. Your name. Your entity. Your assets. What happens to the original company if the expansion is separated from it? Another pause. Longer this time. They'd lose access to almost everything. The warehouse, that's where they store inventory for both divisions. The major clients, they all came through expansion accounts. The equipment, most of it is leased under your name. They'd be left with the old office, some aging equipment, and a handful of legacy clients who barely keep them afloat. I felt something cold and certain settle in my chest. So if I were to separate the expansion division entirely, make it independent, the original company would collapse within months. Maybe weeks. Thank you, David. I need you to prepare separation documents. Full legal independence of the expansion division. New operating name. Complete severance from Martinez Construction Supply. Elena, David said carefully, are you sure about this? That's your family's business. No, I said quietly. It's my business. They just haven't realized it yet. My father and Isabella went to the attorney's office that morning, just like he'd promised. I know because I'd called ahead and arranged to be there too. Not in the meeting. Just waiting. Watching. They arrived at 10 a.m., smiling, confident. My father carried a folder of documents. Isabella wore another expensive outfit, probably bought with company money she'd never earned. They walked past me in the waiting room without even noticing I was there. They were inside for about 20 minutes. I sat calmly, reading emails, handling business calls. Then I heard raised voices. My father's voice, specifically. Loud. Angry. Confused. The door burst open. My father stormed out, his face bright red. This is impossible. I own that company. I built it. You're telling me I can't transfer what's mine? The attorney, Gerald Morrison, followed him out, looking uncomfortable. Mr. Martinez, I'm telling you what the legal documents say. The expansion division is a separate entity. You don't have ownership rights to transfer. Your daughter Elena is the sole owner of that LLC. You can transfer Martinez Construction Supply, but that's a shell company now. Most of your operations run through the expansion. That's insane. She works for me. This is my business. Actually, sir, according to these contracts, she works for herself. You gave her full authority to structure the expansion as she saw fit. She did. And legally, she owns it. That's when Isabella saw me, sitting calmly in the corner of the waiting room. Her eyes went wide. You did this. I stood up slowly, walked toward them. My father was shaking with rage. Isabella looked like she was going to be sick. Did what? I asked innocently. Built a successful business division? Yes. I did that. You were very clear that I needed to earn my place, Dad. So I did. I earned it. I just didn't earn it in your company. I earned it in mine. This is theft, my father shouted. You stole my business. I built a business, I corrected. With my name on every document. My credit on every loan. My signature on every contract. You told me if it failed, it was on me. Remember? Well, it succeeded. And that's on me too. Gerald cleared his throat. Mr. Martinez, I've reviewed all the documents. Your daughter is correct. The expansion division is hers. You signed off on the structure yourself 5 years ago. You gave her full legal authority to operate independently. I gave her authority to manage it. Not to own it. You gave her authority to structure it as she saw fit. She structured it as an independent LLC with herself as the sole owner and operator. It's all here in the paperwork you signed. You just never read it carefully. My father's face went from red to purple. You planned this. All of it. You've been stealing from me for years. I haven't stolen anything, I said calmly. I built something. I risked everything to do it. My credit. My reputation. My financial future. And now I own what I built. That's not theft. That's business. Isabella finally found her voice. So what, you get everything and I get nothing? That's not fair. I almost laughed. Fair? You want to talk about fair? You've never worked a day in your life, Isabella. Never contributed anything. Never risked anything. And last night, Dad announced he was giving you everything while publicly humiliating me in front of 50 people. That was fair? I'm family, she screamed. You're supposed to support family. I did support this family. For 15 years. I worked 70-hour weeks. I saved this company. I expanded it. I made it profitable. While you did nothing but spend money you didn't earn. And my reward was being told I don't deserve anything. That I'm too independent. Too capable. Too strong to need help. I turned to my father. You made a choice last night. You chose Isabella over me. You chose to erase me from the family legacy. Fine. But you can't erase me from something I created. Something I own. This isn't over, my father said, his voice low and dangerous. I'll sue you. I'll take you to court. I'll get my business back. You can try, I said. But David Chen is the best corporate attorney in the state. And he's been my lawyer from day one. Every document is airtight. Every contract is legal. Every structure is legitimate. You gave me the authority to build this, and I did. Now it's mine. Gerald nodded reluctantly. She's right, Mr. Martinez. I've looked at everything. Unless you can prove fraud or coercion, which you can't. These contracts are binding. The expansion division belongs to Elena. My father stared at me with a mixture of rage and something else. Disbelief. Like he couldn't comprehend that his forgettable younger daughter had outmaneuvered him so completely. "You're not my daughter," he said finally. "Not anymore." I felt the words hit. Felt the pain of them. But I didn't let it show. "I stopped being your daughter the moment you decided I wasn't worth acknowledging. Last night, you told 50 people that Isabella was your only heir. You got your wish. She can inherit whatever's left of your company. I already have mine." I walked toward the exit, then paused and turned back. "Oh, and one more thing. The warehouse where you store all your inventory? That's leased under my company's name. The lease expires in 30 days. I won't be renewing it. The equipment you use for most of your operations? Leased under my name too. I'm reclaiming it all. The major client contracts? Mine. I'm notifying them that they'll be working with my company going forward." Isabella's face had gone pale. "You're destroying us." "No," I said quietly. "I'm separating from you. You can keep what's left of Martinez Construction Supply. The old office. The aging equipment Dad originally bought. The handful of legacy clients who barely generate revenue. That's your inheritance. Enjoy it." My father lunged toward me, and Gerald had to step between us. "Mr. Martinez, please. This isn't helping. You're going to regret this," my father shouted. "You're going to lose everything." I looked at him one last time. This man who'd raised me. Who I'd worked so hard to impress. Who'd never once told me he was proud of what I'd accomplished. "I already lost everything that mattered," I said. "Last night. When you made it clear I was never really part of this family. All I'm doing now is taking back what's mine. What I built. What I earned." And I walked out of that office for the last time. The next 30 days were chaos. My father hired 3 different lawyers, each of whom reviewed the contracts and told him the same thing Gerald had. Everything was legal. Everything was binding. The expansion belonged to me. He tried to access the expansion accounts. Frozen. My name, my authority. He tried to use the equipment. Repossessed. My leases, my assets. He tried to contact the major clients. They'd already been notified of the transition and had signed new contracts with my new company, which I'd named Vanguard Construction Supply. A fresh start. A new legacy. Mine. Isabella tried calling me 17 times. I didn't answer. She sent texts ranging from angry to pleading to threatening. I blocked her number. My mother called, crying, begging me to reconsider, to think about family, to show mercy. I didn't respond. Because this wasn't about revenge. This was about survival. About protecting what I'd built from people who'd made it very clear they thought I didn't deserve it. Within 3 months, Martinez Construction Supply was in freefall. Without access to the expansion's resources, infrastructure, and client base, they couldn't fulfill existing contracts. Clients left. Revenue dried up. My father had to lay off most of the staff. The people who'd worked for him for years, who'd helped me build the expansion, I hired them. Every single one. Offered them better pay, better benefits, equity stakes in the new company. They came. Because they knew who'd actually been running things. Who'd cared about them. Who'd built something real. My father tried to sue. 3 separate times. Each lawsuit was thrown out. The contracts were airtight. The separation was legal. There was no case. Isabella tried to run what was left of the business. It was almost comical. She had no idea how anything worked. Didn't know how to read a contract. Couldn't manage inventory. Couldn't handle client relationships. Within 6 months, she'd driven away the last remaining customers through sheer incompetence. The family house, the one my father had promised to transfer to Isabella, they had to sell it. Couldn't afford the mortgage without business income. They moved into a small rental. My mother stopped speaking to me entirely. My father sent one final email: "You destroyed this family. I hope you can live with that." I deleted it without responding. Because I could live with it. I was living with it. Better than I ever had before. Vanguard Construction Supply grew rapidly. Without my father holding me back, without having to justify every decision, without having to watch my sister take credit for my work, I flourished. We expanded into 4 new territories in the first year. Revenue doubled. Then tripled. I hired smart people. Treated them well. Gave them ownership stakes. Built a company culture based on merit, not nepotism. On results, not family connections. And it worked. It thrived. I was featured in a business magazine 18 months after the split. Elena Martinez, building an empire on her own terms. The article detailed how I'd taken a struggling division and turned it into a multi-million-dollar operation. It mentioned, briefly, that I'd come from a family business but had chosen to strike out on her own. The journalist had contacted my father for comment. He'd declined. Isabella had sent a rambling email about how I'd stolen everything and destroyed the family. The magazine hadn't printed it. Apparently, bitter relatives of successful entrepreneurs wasn't the angle they were going for. I saw Isabella once, about 2 years after that dinner. Randomly, at a coffee shop. She was thinner. Older looking. Working as a receptionist at a dental office, I'd heard through mutual acquaintances. She saw me. Our eyes met. For a moment, I thought she might cause a scene. Instead, she just looked away. Pretended she hadn't seen me. I got my coffee and left. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt free. Free from the weight of trying to earn love from people who'd never valued me. Free from working for recognition that would never come. Free from being the forgotten daughter, the strong one, the one who didn't need help. My father never apologized. Never admitted he was wrong. I heard through former employees that he told anyone who'd listen that I'd betrayed the family. Stolen the business. Destroyed everything he'd built. The truth, which those employees knew, was different. I'd built something. He'd tried to take it from me. And I'd protected what was mine. That wasn't betrayal. That was survival. 3 years after the split, Martinez Construction Supply declared bankruptcy. The assets were sold off to pay debts. My father was 72 by then. Too old to start over. Too proud to admit defeat. He and my mother moved in with Isabella, who was barely making enough to support herself, let alone her parents. I found out through a cousin. She called me, tentatively, asking if I knew. If I cared. If I would help. "They're your parents," she said. "Family is family. Don't you think you should?" "No," I said simply. "They made their choice. They live with it. Just like I'm living with mine." She didn't call again. People ask me sometimes if I regret it. If I wish I'd handled things differently. If I feel guilty for what happened to my family. The answer is no. Because here's what people don't understand. What happened at that dinner wasn't the beginning of something. It was the end. The final, public acknowledgement of what had always been true. That I was never really part of their family. Not in the way that mattered. Not in the way that Isabella was. I was useful. I was capable. I was strong enough to be exploited. But I wasn't valued. Wasn't loved. Wasn't considered worthy of the legacy I'd literally built. My father didn't destroy our relationship that night. He just finally admitted out loud what I'd always suspected. And in doing so, he freed me. Freed me to stop seeking his approval. Stop trying to earn a place I'd never be given. Stop sacrificing myself for people who saw that sacrifice as weakness, as obligation, as something they were owed. Vanguard Construction Supply is now one of the largest construction supply companies in the region. We employ over 200 people. We've expanded into 6 states. Our annual revenue is in the tens of millions. And I own all of it. Every share. Every asset. Every success. I built this. Not my father. Not my family. Me. With my vision, my work, my risk. And nobody can take it from me. Nobody can stand up at a dinner and announce that it's being given to someone else. Nobody can tell me I don't deserve what I've created. Because it's mine. Legally. Ethically. Morally. Mine. This is the story of the daughter who was publicly erased from her family's legacy, only to reveal that the legacy had always been hers to begin with. A reminder that when people show you who they really are, believe them. And protect yourself accordingly. My father thought he was punishing me by giving everything to Isabella. Instead, he freed me. Freed me from the obligation to keep building something I'd never be credited for. Freed me from the exhausting work of trying to earn love from people incapable of giving it. He handed me the greatest gift he ever gave me. The motivation to take what was mine and walk away. To build something new. Something better. Something that couldn't be taken from me on a whim. Something that would last long after his bitterness faded and his mistakes caught up with him. Isabella got her inheritance. The company name. The old equipment. The fading client list. Everything my father promised her. It just turned out that what he promised was worthless. Because the real value, the real business, the real legacy, I'd already taken it. And I'd done it legally, ethically, and completely. The truth is, people will show you your value to them. Sometimes with words. Sometimes with actions. And sometimes, like my father, with a public toast at a celebration dinner where they announce you're not worth remembering. When that happens, you have 2 choices. You can fight for scraps of recognition from people who will never see you. Or you can take what's yours and build something new. Something that reflects your actual worth. Something nobody can take from you. I chose the second option. And I've never regretted it. Not for a single moment. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below. Have you ever been erased by your own family? Have you had to choose between loyalty and self-preservation? Share your story. And remember, the people who don't value you don't deserve access to what you build. Protect yourself. Protect your work. And never apologize for taking what's legally, rightfully, and morally yours. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is walking away from people who've made it clear you'll never be enough. And building something so extraordinary that their rejection becomes the best thing that ever happened to you.